inexplicable murders in the 80s left investigators stumped and the cases cold for 3 decades until Apodaca's shocking confession to Albuquerque police detectives in the summer of 2021.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Steph if you're new here, and as always, we thank you guys for tuning in. Do you guys remember the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer? I'm sure you remember the movie. It's about a friend group. This friend group does something horrific. They keep a secret. That secret ultimately turns around and bites them literally in the booty. They all die. Well, maybe one of them does not die, but you know. But did you know that movie is an adaptation from a book written in 1973 by Lois Duncan? Now you're probably wondering, well, where are we going with this, Steph? Well, imagine you write this book, right? This nonfiction suspense book, and then years later, after the book comes out, your life takes this detour. Your 18-year-old daughter is murdered. And this would change your life, your family's life, and how you see the world when it comes to writing novels. Now, 18-year-old Kaitlyn Arquette died July 16th, 1989 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, Kaitlyn was described that night around 10:30 driving in her red Ford Tempo, and she had gotten into an accident. But what law enforcement would find is that Kaitlyn had been shot 2 times in the head, and her car had drifted into multiple lanes and ultimately hitting a telephone pole. Now, the family did get their own private investigator, and the investigator discovered that this person that killed Kaitlyn had been driving very closely to her car and hit it. So he was able to get in good range to shoot Kaitlyn in the head, and that's how her car was able to drift off into multiple lanes. And unfortunately, Kaitlyn lost her life. Now, this tragedy of losing her daughter and the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer coming out in 1997 is the reason why she stopped writing suspense novels, because she felt like the movie made it kind of like you desensitized to the violence that occurred, because in the movie, a young woman is hit abruptly in a vehicle and they die. And the family or whoever, of that loved one goes off on this killing spree. So I definitely can understand. Now, Miss Duncan did have a prize-winning book that she wrote in 1992 about her daughter. But unfortunately for Miss Duncan, she would never know who murdered her daughter, because she would die years before they ultimately found him. Now, let's get into Mr. Paul Adopa. His last name doesn't even matter if it's correct, because he's a trifling murderer, okay? Now, as I begin to read, this man was actually at the crime scene.
Including that Apodaca was at the scene of her daughter's murder. Carrie says they always believed he had something to do with it. She says her mother always said she wouldn't die until she got justice for Kaitlyn, but Duncan passed away in 2016.
You heard that. He was actually at the crime scene the day Kaitlyn Arquette lost her life. Now, on July 20th, 2011, Paul was registered as a sex offender. Now, this is where the story gets crazy and kind of pees me off, because having a friend die by someone that was already in jail but gets out for good behavior is why a lot of people repeat crimes. Well, on July 20th, 2021, Mr. Paul, who was already had spent 11 years in prison for raping his stepsister in 1995, decides to walk into the police department to admit killing a young girl by the name of Athea Oakley, and he was arrested because he was already on probation after he confessed this. Now, as he begins to talk, which I'm going to read something so you can hear it word for word, he also admitted to killing someone by the name of Gonzalez and Miss Arquette, which is Kaitlyn. And we'll get into what happened to Miss Gonzalez as well. And he also admitted to raping many others. And see, this is what be pissing me off, because to have someone that already had, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, it just makes you so angry, because these angry, devilish people are literally walking our streets, and they just get out for easy peasy. What? And then they harm other families. Like what? So it says one rape has tied Paul because of Mayor Tim Keller's efforts to clear a backlog of more than 5,000 sexual assault kits that sat on evidence shelves for decades. Police said following Paul's arrest, the DNA on one of those kits returned a match on February 2021. APD was recently notified that the DNA matched the known DNA of Paul Apadata, whatever his last name is, because it don't matter. Police said Paul had no ties to the victims, but knew key details about each crime scene. So he tells a detective that he spent his last year in jail crying about the things that he has done. You want sympathy? Like, where are we going at with this? And he says that because he read Miss Duncan's book. Isn't that crazy? They say that the book caused him to spiral in wanting to confess. I don't care what the book did. You should have been confessed. And you shouldn't even have been out. How about that?
Appadaka's shocking confession to Albuquerque police detectives in the summer of 2021.
After years and years of contemplating and searching, I understand all the pain that caused and I've given.
Now let's go back to read about the murders of the two other girls. The other young lady is by the name of Stella Gonzalez. I did not say her name. And the other one is Adela Oakley. So let's read what it says, because y'all know it can be a lot, honey. So University of New Mexico student Adela Oakley, 21, was last seen alive on June 22nd, 1988. Mind you, a year before Miss Arquette. So after an argument with her boyfriend on an off-campus fraternity house party, she walked in the direction of her residence, which Oakley shared with her brother. It say a short time later, she was stabbed to death outside of her Bonita Vista Drive home, but no suspects were identified at the time. They said neighbors heard screams and took life-saving measures to no avail, according to CBS Albuquerque affiliate. One witness, who wanted to remain anonymous, told the outlet there was a lot of blood and that Oakley didn't want to die, and she collapsed there.
He told police he was working as a security aide at TVI, which is now CNN, and saw her walking away from a fraternity party and followed her down Buena Vista. He said he was planning to rape her near the Lobo parking lot along Buena Vista, but stabbed her multiple times instead. The witness I spoke with says she didn't get a good look at Apadaka's face that night when he fled the scene, but is relieved he's finally caught.
I'm glad that they found him, and I hope he gives them life.
So it says a police chief that knew the victim personally took the case to heart and re-examined it in 2012, and then again several years later. And then it says in a video created by Department, Medina, also of Teos, remembered his mother making dresses for girls participating in the Teos Fiesta Queen pageant in 1985, describing Oakley as a very kind person. I was only a teenager at the time, but I remember the impact of her death and what it had on the community. It says years later, Paul, then a security guard at a vocational school located just 0.7 miles from the victim's home, confessed to watching Oakley leave the frat house. He said he initially decided to rape her in a nearby parking lot, but changed his mind, instead stabbing her with a Swiss Army knife. And the sad part about it, as I'm about to read this, she was just kind to him. She said hi and smiled at me. That's the worst part. How do you hurt someone who smiles at you? He tells authorities. I didn't think my short little knife would be able to do that much damage. What? Now, the murder of Stella Gonzalez. Months after Oakley's stabbing death, 13-year-old, oh my God, she was only 13-year-old. Months after Oakley's stabbing death, 13-year-old Stella Gonzalez became the second victim of Paul. It says on September 9th, 1988, around 1:15 a.m., Gonzalez and a female friend walked along Central Avenue east of Tingley Drive when an unknown man confronted them in a car. It says the killer fired multiple shots and the teen later died at a hospital. Police said it appeared to be a random attack, possibly because Gonzalez, a female who was in a vulnerable position. They said, "You have no idea what you took from me," Gonzalez's mother said in 2021 in a victim statement to her daughter's killer. It says, "Since the day you killed her, there's an emptiness in my heart that can never be filled. May God forgive me, but I hope you go to hell." Okay, as the fuck he should. Little ugly ass.
The mother of 13-year-old Stella Gonzalez also spoke.
May God forgive me, but I hope you go to hell.
So where is Paul now? Paul pled guilty on January 25th, 2024. He did 3 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of attempted rape, and 1 count of kidnapping. It says he was sentenced to 45 years in prison. It says Paul condemned gun violence and his own actions when taking responsibility for the killings. "I now know the sorrow I have caused by perpetuating that darkness and passing my pain onto others." It just sucks because it took for him to actually sexually assault someone, meaning his stepsister, in 1995 in order for him to actually be in the system, right? Because he had committed these other crimes, years prior. Had he gotten charged and convicted the first time, like if they found him for murdering, Oakley, none of these other crimes would have occurred. It's so unfortunate, but I just thought that was so interesting when I seen that, because I never knew that I Know What You Did Last Summer was based on a book, and I never knew about Miss Duncan. Kind of strange that she wrote that book and that's kind of how her daughter was murdered, right? Because you all know in I Know What You Did Last Summer, person was hit by a car or whatever the case is, and yeah, it's so unfortunate. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I thought it was very interesting. Never knew anything about it, and thought I'd share. And always just be mindful of your surroundings. The world is such a crazy, crazy place, y'all. Like, so much going on in this world. Please be safe. I'm sending all my love to the families, the victims, families that were hurt by this sick, devious individual. They didn't deserve this. Their children didn't deserve this. It's just so unfortunate. I know I say it all the time, but I really do mean that when I say it. Like, so unfortunate. Like, how can you do that to someone because you have hatred for whatever you went through? That's why you have to heal your trauma, because if a woman has given you trauma, you should not take that trauma out on other women. But yeah, let me know about today's episode, and if you have any true crime stories you want us to touch on, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye guys.